What's up guys? So about a little over a month ago, I made a video where I talk about my predictions of the 10 characters I would like to see join Smash Ultimate the most. And in the comment section, I had quite a few people mention the main character of the Kingdom Hearts franchise, Sora, as the character they would like to see join the most. And since I made a video talking about my thoughts on Mortal Kombat joining Smash, I figured I'd talk about Sora as well. So now, as you could probably tell from the title of the video, I honestly do not think he will end up joining Smash. But that is just my personal opinion, so if you disagree, that is totally fine. And honestly, anything can happen, so if he does end up getting announced at E3 in June, or even as the final character at a later date, then that would be awesome, and I would be really happy for everyone who has been begging for him to join for ages. So with all of that being said, let's address the elephant in the room, which is also a major reason why I don't think Sora will join Smash, period, and that is Disney. Now, the fact that Disney is heavily involved with the Kingdom Hearts franchise is enough of an explanation as to why they won't join for me personally, because if you haven't played any of the Kingdom Hearts games, almost all of the areas and characters are Disney owned. And though this franchise is made by the same company who has made the Final Fantasy franchise, Square Enix obviously isn't the only company that has to give the go-ahead for him to join. And actually, Square Enix wouldn't even be that big of a factor in this conversation, because Disney owns the copyright in practically every character that pops up in these games, which is including Sora, Riku, and everyone else. But even if Disney and Square Enix agreed to add Sora, to do his addition complete justice, there would have to be some additional characters popping up in either his taunts, victory screens, or the map that we will receive with his addition. Because, as you probably know, with almost every map that we have gotten with a DLC character, there is always the supporting cast or additional characters thrown into the map, with Sephiroth's map being the only exception. And though it has been reported that Nintendo and Disney are in talks with one another lately, should Sora be one of the last two DLC characters, I'm not entirely sure if Disney is going to be willing to throw Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy into Smash as well, even if they are just the core. And yes, they could just focus on the non-Disney supporting cast, but as I said, another huge part of this franchise is Disney. So I personally don't think Kingdom Hearts as a whole would be done justice if there weren't some Disney characters thrown into the mix. And not to mention, but there has been a mechanic since the second Kingdom Hearts game, where Sora can merge via fusion dance with either Donald or Goofy to achieve one of the two new forms that were introduced in Kingdom Hearts 2. And I don't know about you, but I don't think Sora could achieve those exact forms if Donald and Goofy were nowhere to be found. And obviously it could just be a mechanic that doesn't exactly need them to be around, but I personally just don't think it would be very satisfying to just copy-paste Shulk's down special. I mean, in theory, he would have that exact down special, just so you can decide between the different drive forms you want to complement your playstyle. And for his more OP drive forms, in my opinion, they should be behind a damage wall that is similar to Terry's Go Sauce or Sephiroth's Wing, just so they don't have to be nerfed into oblivion to become available. But then again, Sakurai could really care less about balance, so who really knows? But if I were the one to decide, I think his final form and anti-form should have some special requirements to be unlocked, such as having to be over 100% for his final form on any stock, and for his anti-form he has to be at over 100% on his final stock, because ideally it would be the most OP form out of all of them, so he would have to be in a dire need to activate that form. But anyways, back to Donald and Goofy. I'm not entirely sure about the specifics of how to have them involved, other than having them act similarly to Pokemon Trainer, with the both of them being in the background acting as emotional support just for Sora, and obviously Goofy disappearing whenever Sora activates his Valor form, and so on. But in terms of 3 out of the 6 drive forms that Sora has, they are more or less a necessity to keep it as true to the games as possible. But that is just my opinion, and I'm not exactly a fan of Kingdom Hearts, so if you are a fan, and you don't think that Sora needs Donald and Goofy to achieve these drive forms, then let me know in the comments down below. And of course, they could also just use the form change mechanic from Kingdom Hearts 3, but I haven't played Kingdom Hearts 3, and on top of that, I personally think that the drive forms would be a lot better functionality wise. But I could just be biased, because in my opinion, I think if they only used the form changes, he would just end up playing more or less exactly like Byleth. But I do think that they should use a mix between the two, with his strike form being his forward smash and his guardian main form being used while he shields, as well as the ultimate form being his final smash, and maybe even using the element form or the blitz form as a setup for the final smash. Now, for my second reason.
So you return, and sooner than expected. I see. Too many swordsmen, are there?
He is a sword fighter, and a huge complaint that a lot of the Smash player base has had is that there are probably too many sword fighters. And though I don't share that sentiment, Sakurai has acknowledged the complaints about the amount of sword fighters, and given that we have had 2 sword fighters back to back in Pyra and Mithra and Sephiroth, and arguably even Steve, and the only reason that I'm throwing Steve onto that list is because I'm applying the same reasoning as to why we all consider Byleth a sword fighter. So of course, if you don't consider Steve to be a sword character, then by all means, Sora probably has a very good chance. But if you do think Steve's a sword fighter, then I just don't think that Sakurai would make 4 out of the 6 fighters on the pass the same type of character that many people complain about. And also considering how on the last fighter pass there were only 2 sword fighters out of the 5 characters that we received, I'm not sure how good his chances are. Though I would love to see the different keyblades that Sora wields in action, and his ability to use spells in Kingdom Hearts would make his fighting style a little more unique. Personally, I think that he would probably end up playing like a mix between Shulk and Robin, or a bare bones version of Hero. Maybe even a little bit of Cloud thrown in. And speaking of Mr. Strife, I personally think that a fantastic cinematic to introduce Sora in would be a rematch between him and Cloud, as a nod to his first appearance in the Kingdom Hearts series, where Cloud serves as a mercenary for Hades with the single goal to kill Hercules. But as great as that all would be, the odds of Sora joining just don't look that good with all things considered. And now my final reason for why I don't think Sora will join, which to be honest with you isn't exactly the strongest reason, but I definitely think it is worth mentioning. Sora would end up being yet another rep that we would be getting from Square Enix, and it would also be on the same fighter pass. So given that we have already had Sephiroth released earlier this year, I just don't think that Sakurai would get a rep from the same company twice in one fighter pass. And considering that every rep that we have gotten so far are owned by separate companies unless it is a Nintendo owned IP, and knowing that Sakurai tries to get as much representation as possible in these fighter passes, I'm not entirely sure if he would get 2 Square Enix slots on the same fighter pass, especially considering the track record that we have had with Square Enix characters. Because Cloud first joined Smash on the Wii U/3DS installment, and after we got Hero back in 2019, I never would have thought we would ever end up getting Sephiroth, especially within the same game. So I genuinely don't think that we will see Sora join until the inevitable new Smash Bros. Game. So that is more or less all of the reasons why I don't see Sora joining. But regardless, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. As always, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.